Hey, it's Rick McBride with your Property Masters and 5 minutes of free time. Finally back again. It's so busy between baseball and the all the deals we got going on, but I wanted to check in. They say we're not going to be doing this every day from now on, but we're going to do it as often as we can, and especially when we find a topic that we need to discuss. Right now, I want to talk about why you want to provide closing costs to the buyer. So often we hear sellers tell us, I'm not giving them anything in reference to the buyer who's requesting assistance to help cover their closing costs. It's often followed up with, if they can't afford the place, they shouldn't be buying it. And while you may feel these statements are justified, we have to look deeper to see why they're incorrect. First of all, what are buyers' closing costs? When a buyer pays cash, there aren't a lot of closing costs. They just pay the title company, and that's pretty much it. But when a buyer purchases a property, they usually finance the property, and they have a number of closing costs that they have to pay at closing. Most of these come from the bank, such as a loan processing fee, prepaid interest, loan origination fees, buy downs, etc. There's numerous ones that are charged by the bank. They typically run anywhere from 2 to 4% of the loan value or of the sale of the property. So a customer, say purchasing a $300,000 home with an FHA loan, putting down 3.5%. Hey, say hi. Wave to the guy. Just had a guy look into our window. He might be trying to find his way in here. But typically putting down 3.5% would be taking out a mortgage in the amount of $289,500. Their closing costs would run them an additional $8,655 if their closing costs were 3% of the mortgage. A little complicated there, but that would basically mean that a buyer would have to bring $19,185 to the table. The closing costs plus $10,500, the 3.5% payment. Substantial amount of money, obviously. Sometimes buyers doing 100% financing. Let's say they're doing a VA loan, they're a veteran, or a USDA loan in a more rural area. In those cases, if the buyer asks the seller to cover their closing costs, they can get into the house for essentially no money down. That's a great option for someone who has really good credit, but maybe they don't have $10,000 in cash laying around. Essentially, the buyer is financing their closing costs. So what's actually happening here? Is the seller actually paying the closing costs? No. The buyer is financing the closing costs into their loan. Think about it. Your property is listed for $300,000 and you're willing to take $290,000 for it. Why would you not take an offer of $295,000 and give the buyer $5,000 towards their closing costs? You're still netting $290,000 like you wanted to, and they are able to finance $5,000 of their closing costs into their loan. Why would they want to take money out of their pocket to pay the bank when they can use the money to wrap fees back into they can use the money and wrap their fees back into their loan? It makes financial sense for them to do that. You aren't giving the buyer anything. As long as you look at it as selling the property for the amount less than the contract price, with the excess being given back to the buyer at closing to help them pay their closing costs, you really aren't giving them anything. You're simply providing a conduit for them to keep money in their pockets and finance their closing costs. You pay nothing up front. All costs are deducted from the proceeds of the sale. So as far as you're concerned, you're putting the same amount of money into your pocket. You're just allowing a small portion of the sale proceeds that would otherwise not even be there to be credited back to the buyer. Are you considering selling your property? Make sure you factor in a percentage to pay towards the buyer's closing costs. More often than not, the buyer will ask for and oftentimes need for the seller to help them cover their closing costs. This is often done by simply adjusting the purchase price upward to accommodate this. You need a professional when you're selling your property who can help guide you through this and many other facets of the sale. Call or text us today at 386-866-1007 and let us get you top dollar for your property today.